Want to publish an audiobook but feel priced out by pro narrators? Well, you're not alone, and you're not out of options. In this episode, I'll walk you through the tools, platforms, and strategies that help indie authors sell audiobooks, whether you're using a professional voice talent or AI narration. Plus, I'll show you where digital narration is already working, how to distribute across platforms like, say, Spotify and ACX, and how to market audiobooks even if you're on a shoestring budget. This is part 11 in my 12-part series, The Ultimate Guide to Selling Books for Indie Authors, and I'm just kind of geeked up. We're getting towards the end of our little series here, so you're going to want to make sure you stay tuned to this episode and also next week's episode. If you've been with me so far, you know we've covered everything from book promos to Amazon ads to direct sales and beyond. Today, it's all about audiobooks. And yes, you can publish and sell them even if your narrator budget is $0. Stay tuned to today's podcast for more details. And before we do jump into things, of course, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Book Award Pro. Let's talk about one of the smartest ways to boost your book's visibility: Book Awards. Winning or even being nominated can help you stand out, build trust, and increase your sales. But most authors have no idea where to start. That's where Book Award Pro comes in. They help you find awards that fit your book, guide your submissions, and even write the entry for you in some instances. I use Book Award Pro to target awards I never would have found on my own, and it's paid off in both credibility and new readers. They've got a free plan, so there's no reason not to get started. Head on over to my affiliate link at dalelinks.com/bookawardpro and see what awards your book could win. Now keep in mind, they're going to update you every week with new opportunities, so make sure you keep an eye on your inbox. Special thanks to my longtime sponsors, Book Award Pro, for their continued support of this podcast. It just means the world to me. All right, let's go ahead and transition to the topic of talking about audiobooks. Now, why do audiobooks matter? Because there are some people that just, hey, yeah, it's whatever. Hear me out here for just a second. The audiobook market is just booming. I've said this time and again, and many other experts have said so as well. You've seen double-digit growth year over year. Over the past, I think it's been a decade now, that they just continue to grow and grow and grow. I think it was like almost 30% growth every single year, which is just absolutely unheard of in the other, companions like print editions or ebooks. So it's really neat to see that growth. People are consuming content through audio while multitasking, things like driving. I know I've listened to some audiobooks and podcasts when I'm driving. Working out, same thing. Cleaning, any number of just those tasks that you're able to do, but you're able to still listen to audiobooks. That's where people are starting to really, latch on to audiobooks. Because, oh my gosh, I can read a book, but I don't have to actually read the book. It'll just be read to me. Sign me up. It's a huge reason why I'm a big fan of digital audiobooks, is I use them myself. Now, these are often priced higher than ebooks as well. You would probably assume immediately, oh, since it's priced higher than an ebook, I'll probably get paid better. It depends, and it depends on the avenue in which you're distributing and selling your audiobook through and your ebook through. But we'll just say that it can come at a nice little substantial amount based on the avenue that you choose. Even one audiobook adds legitimacy to your book listing. That is one of the ways to really stand out, especially if you want to become more discoverable on platforms like Amazon. Having numerous iterations of your current publication is going to aid in discoverability, meaning that if you have the ebook, you have the paperback, you have the hardcover, and you have the audiobook, you are becoming more discoverable by having those 4 options available on your page. So now that I've kind of told you, all right, these audiobooks, they're here to stay. They're really blowing up. You should consider this. What are your options that are available? Okay, so obviously there are a couple of options. Option number 1, you just get a professional narrator. Now, professional narrators, and I'm going to go ahead and throw voiceover talent or voiceover actors, actresses, if you will, underneath that whole guise of professional narrator, even though some people would argue that that is not the same thing, voiceover, as well as, because you got to think that some authors are using voiceovers for their fiction work. Nonfiction authors are probably using a narrator of some sort. So I'm just going to stick with narration for now. So we've got the professional narration. The beauty of having that is you get the best quality possible if you're working with an experienced narrator. They probably come with trust by listeners, not only for the people that buy your book, but also previously that have bought books that narrator has done before. Yes, narrators sometimes come with their own following, especially if they start to get larger. It also adds polish and authority to your work by having this professional audiobook done. Now, there are cons. It is expensive. There's no other way for me to mince words about this. And I think that anybody will tell you that it comes at a great financial cost up front. And this is one of the greatest barriers of entry, because it can cost anywhere from $150 to $400 or more per finished hour. Now, if you're not familiar with per finished hour, that means that the completed audiobook in its entirety, let's say my book is 3 hours long, I would then have to pay $150 to $400 per hour of that 3-hour specific audiobook. So you see that as an example. They will charge you a higher rate than what you would normally see on a per hour basis. That's why it's so important to understand the distinction between per finished hour and per hour, because this isn't like a 9-to-5 job where they're clocking in and clocking out. No, they're doing an entire project and spending hours. And I've even heard some narrators say that it can take anywhere from about an hour to 8 hours or more to really work on 1 hour of content. So it just varies, depends on the complexity of things, but you can see that it is rather costly. And if you have an epic length novel, I hope you got deep pockets. There's also a slower turnaround time. Yeah, it's going to take some time, especially if you have a multicast production. It's going to take a while. And also, it requires specific script formatting and coordination, because you can't just willy-nilly hand off your manuscript to your audiobook narrator, because there's some things that shouldn't be read. So it'd be, for instance, if they were saying something that was read in the book, like the actual line was, if you read it earlier in my previous chapters, you'd probably need to change the read to if you heard in my previous chapters. So that way it is more applicable to a narrator. And in some instances, like fiction, you would end up taking out the dialogue tag of some sort. So it wouldn't be he said, she said. You would just go with the entire dialogue with that particular voice actor without having to say that he said or she said. Now, this option is best for authors with a backlist or an audience already buying. So I don't often tell new authors, like, you have to go for audiobooks. It is a good idea you go for audiobooks, but I do understand that there's a little bit of risk up front, especially if you don't have a backlist or an audience that's already willing to buy. You're going and plunking down 10 grand on a full epic length novel done by a multicast, crew. It's going to be astronomical, and there would be huge risk because you don't know if it's going to take off or not. And this is also really good for nonfiction with clear brand building goals, and also great for flagship titles. So in the event, let's say you've got a large backlog of books, but you've got maybe 1-2 flagship titles. In other words, the ones that essentially you send the most readers to. We're not talking about your perma-free books or your short stories or your novellas. We're talking about your novels, if you will, your collections, your entire things that you're going to send people on over towards. So focus on the thing that moves the needle. So if you see one particular book in your backlist right now that you don't have audiobooks for, but is drawing in a substantial amount of revenue, I would recommend going with that one first. All right, option number 2. Now I'm going to pull out just real quick here. There's an option 1.5, and that would be if you did it yourself. Now, that requires a whole skill set to it. Yes, that is free to do, but in the same instance, you need to get the right equipment. You need to learn the specs. You're going to end up investing some money in some capacity, or you're going to invest a ton of sweat equity trying to figure out, okay, how do I record this in Audacity because it's a free program? All right, what's the best way that I can mix and master this so it is usable on platforms like Audiobook Creation Exchange or Spotify for Authors, things like that. All right, so that was option 1.5. I wanted to briefly mention that because I think that there are a lot of you folks out there that are all about that. You're ready to do with your bootstraps. My good friend Willie Mays, he actually recorded his entire audiobook with a USB microphone that he bought off Amazon, and he did it in the comforts of his office, recorded that thing, sent it to somebody over in Fiverr, they mixed and mastered it, and was ready to go. And it sounded actually pretty professional. That specific USB microphone that Willie had, I believe it was under $100 for sure. And I believe it might have been a Yeti, which look up a Blue Yeti. Those are pretty good USB mics. All right. I think that's a whole episode needs saved for another day. Option number 2, AI or digital narration. From this point on, I'm just going to call it digital narration because it's easier to say. And also it comes with less of that blowback of saying AI, because there's some people that really get very passionate about talking about AI. It's not a foul word, folks. Artificial intelligence does have its uses, and there are some folks out there that are consuming content that is digitally narrated. Now, are people making bank selling audiobooks with digital narration? I can't speak on that. It's still relatively new to really tell. But you can also go through places like, say, Audible or Amazon or even Spotify, and typically you can see some type of a warning placed on the listing, somewhere in the listing, usually on the top, maybe it's on the bottom, where it says that it is digitally narrated. So it's letting the consumer know ahead of time, like, hey, this is not a human narrator, this is digital narration. There are some platforms to explore. Now, I'm going to tell you one of them that I was absolutely blown away by, and that's 11 Labs. They have hyper realistic AI voices. I was speaking with my good friend Nick Thacker it's probably been about a year, maybe closer to 2 years, and he wanted to share with me his audiobook. And so we were on a video chat and he started playing it, and I was like, oh, it sounds great, man. I was just like, so, what was that process like? Did you learn all the specs? How were you able to mix and master it? Sounds clean. He's like, I didn't have to do anything. I just gave it to 11 Labs and they handled it for me. And I was like, oh, what? It sounded like Nick. It was at a pretty good pacing. And when I listened really closely, I could hear that, there were some weird digital artifacts that you only hear in digital narration. You will know if you've heard enough audiobooks. You'd be able to pick it out. There's just this, I don't know, but it's hard to kind of say. But at any rate, 11 Labs, fantastic. I don't have any affiliate links for them, by the way. Same thing for this next one. It's called Speechify. I learned about Speechify through Brandon Sanderson when he had that very successful Kickstarter campaign. Shortly thereafter, he was looking at alternatives to using Audible, and Speechify was one of those options, as well as Spotify. They are fast, user-friendly, and ideal for testing narration. And I believe they even have some famous voices on there. So if you want to have your narration done by Gwyneth Paltrow, Snoop Dogg, Mr. Beast, there's a number of them that are on there. Speechify is definitely the way to go. Now, I interviewed the founders of this next company that's called Spoken.Press. Now, they're a new indie-friendly platform that essentially has the digital narration, but there is a granular control that you get on Spoken Press that you don't otherwise get in the other areas, like an 11 Labs or like a Speechify, at least not the way that they have it. So Spoken Press right now is an open beta. So in the event that you want to go check it out, just go over and visit spoken.press. Tell them Dale sent you on over towards that direction. Kick around with it. I believe they give you a certain amount of free credits per month that you can get the digital narration for your book, and you can do an entire book all at once if you want to. You can choose the types of digital voices that you want to have on it. And the beauty of it, it actually works with 11 Labs. I don't know if they work with any others, but they are working with actual human narrators that are licensing their likeness to be used through their platform. So when you're using this digital narration, it is being ethically sourced, meaning that it's coming from a narrator that has given their approval and are getting compensated for. Now, it's not near the same amount what they get when they're doing it as a human narrator, but you know what? It is kind of nice when you have something. So in any event, Spoken Press, really kind of neat. One of their cool tools is when you go in there, let's say that there's a pronunciation that digital narration's getting wrong. This happens a lot on other platforms. You can go in, if you've got a laptop and you have a built-in onboard microphone as a minimum, or a microphone beyond that, you can always just go in and you will speak out how you want it to sound. Then the voice that you selected for digital narration will copy what you've done. So then it creates such a better user experience, something that's a bit more authentic to your vision. Now, hang in there. Spoken Press is, again, an open beta, and I believe they have 50-50 royalty split for them. So with 11 Labs and Speechify, you're not getting distribution so much as you're getting the digital narration that you can distribute on your own. Now, the pros with using digital narration, of course, is it's fast, it's affordable, and it's scalable. A good friend of mine, Michael Iran, he is a prolific author. Like, it is insane the number of nonfiction books he puts out on a regular basis. And it is not affordable, and it's not something that would be a smart idea for him to put out a new audiobook every single time he's got a new nonfiction book that comes out. And especially with some of them that aren't necessarily evergreen, that they're very time specific. So using digital narration makes sense because, well, it's giving an option for those readers, or excuse me, quote unquote, listeners. They're giving them option that they can still be able to use it. Sure, it's not Michael, but it is something if someone still wants to consume the content but doesn't need the ebook and doesn't have the time for a print book. This is great for testing versions, serialized releases, and ARC audio. So for some reason you have an advanced reader copy type thing, you can always do some audio that way. This would be a great way, for instance, like if you have something that's already being done by voiceover folks. Use digital narration to put together an ARC audio, explain it to the people that are getting your ARC copy, and tell them, hey, it's digital narration. This does not represent the finalized product, but this is going to at least give you this. So, cons with digital narration. Some readers still are skeptical of AI voice narration. I get it. I'm not a fan of it myself. There are a lot of times when I'm on YouTube and there's some video that pops up with some type of digital narration put on it and it sounds like trash. I'm like, pass, out, I'm done. No. It's not all of them though. Again, platforms like 11 Labs, Speechify, and Spoken Press are, definitely getting better. Are they perfect? No. They can also lack emotional nuance in dramatic passages. Again, Spoken Press has a solution to that problem. I don't know that the other two do, so if I'm speaking out of turn, my apologies. It's been a while since I've kicked around on Speechify as well as the other platform, 11 Labs. And it's not yet accepted on all major platforms. So you might be able to get digital narration, but you're not going to be able to go directly to platforms like, say, ACX. But let's walk it back here for just a second here, because I'm going to hit some of those platforms in just a moment. If you haven't been able to tell, this is going to be a longer episode than normal here, folks. This is best for fiction writers experimenting with audio. Digital narration is also good for budget-conscious authors. It's also good for testing audiobook viability before investing in a pro narration. So, for instance, like let's say that you want to come up with the earnings so that way you can afford the per finished hour. This might be an option to go ahead and do that. Alrighty, let's go ahead and talk distribution platforms with or without a narrator. And we're going to start out with Audiobook Creation Exchange, ACX as I normally call it. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of ACX, but I also know that it is a good viable option for many indie authors out there. So I'm just going to go ahead and put them here on the table. Now, they distribute to Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. You'll get a royalty of 40% for exclusive distribution, meaning that you can only put your audiobook there, nowhere else. You can't put it in digital narration anywhere else. No, nowhere. But if you want to go non-exclusive, it'll be a 25% royalty, much lower. Now, you're probably saying, hang on a second, Dale, wait. What about the AI narration? Well, believe it or not, it is now open for an opt-in for beta. Now, I was given a invite to doing the beta access. I haven't played with it at all, to be honest. Just not a fan of ACX, so naturally I'm probably not going to explore that option. But they do have it available there. Now, in the event that you don't have access to ACX, but you do through KDP, KDP has the new invite only. Again, it's kind of like where you have to opt in to get access to it, but KDP has the option to do digital narration through them. Now, I will tell you that from personal experience, I've used the KDP AI narration, and it's not horrible, but to me, it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's just, I wouldn't be able to put my digital narration on that. Now, in the event that you find it passable, and you're like, that's okay, Dale, I like what they have to offer, you just have to go over. They've got a link inside their community, in the community tab, where you have to request an invite to the digital narration program. So there are two options, though, when it comes to ACX. There's the royalty share. This is the free option. In the event you don't have the cash, you can look into royalty share. There is an asterisk next to that. There is no upfront cost. You will forever split 50-50 royalties with your narrator. And again, you're going to have to be exclusive to Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. It is a non-negotiable. In order to use the royalty share program, you can't use it anywhere else. There's also Royalty Share Plus. Now, let's say you find a real good premium voiceover talent or narrator. They come at a high price, but you can't quite afford it, and you can afford some middle ground. They have the Royalty Share Plus, which is a reduced per finished hour fee, plus the 50-50 royalty split. So, the problem, well, let's go ahead with the pros first. There is no, and there's actually just a low upfront cost if you use the Royalty Share Plus. In a lot of instances, I don't hear too many people using it, but it is an option that's available. It also makes professional narration accessible for budget-strapped authors. I know when I broke into the business, 50-50 royalty split, I was all in. I was like, let's go ahead and do this. It's easier to get narrators interested in newer books as well when you have something like that. Now, the cons are you're exclusive for the life of the contract with the narrator, not just the usual 7 years, because a lot of times people say, okay, you've got the 50-50 royalty split. It is a 7-year contract. When that 7 years is up, I used to believe that the rights would revert to me, meaning that I get the full rights of the audio content. No. It don't work that way. You get 7 years of distribution through ACX, and it will auto-renew 1 year at a time after the 7 years unless you otherwise say, pull it off the market. You tell them, remove it from the market. This includes if you buy the rights to that. Let's say you go to the narrator, you say, hey, I'll go ahead and pay you for this if you could just give me the full rights to it. And in that event, they can do that. Narrator will go ahead and sign off on it, and you have to just remove it for distribution, and then you have to re-upload it, losing all relevance you had for that title already and losing all the reviews. Yeah, so you can see that it's becomes a bit tough. You also cannot distribute it elsewhere. There's no Spotify, there's no Authors Republic, there's nothing. You have to stick with ACX. And you don't own the audio, as I said. If you want to leave the contract or republish it wide, you'll need to buy out the narrator. And it's one of those cases I tell people that if you must get a royalty share put in place in order to get your first audiobook out, go ahead and do that. I would not recommend doing every single one of your books through the 50-50 royalty share program. I learned the hard way that what ends up happening is if a title takes off, that narrator is more likely to not want to be bought out, or they will ask for a higher than normal per finished hour rate. At least that's what has happened to me. Not every single instance. This option is best for authors confident their book will sell on Audible. ACX is great for that. Audible brings in the lion's share of global publication profits for audiobooks. It's just a fact. It's also good for first-time audiobook authors who want pro quality without the big cost, but don't mind being locked into long-term relationships like the 50-50 royalty share. Another platform for you to take a look at is going to be Spotify for authors. Now, we're going to kind of put this underneath formerly known as Findaway Voices by Spotify, even though Findaway Voices is still technically around until I think August when they go ahead and close their doors. They are now splitting Spotify for authors into two different avenues. One's going to be Spotify only distribution, which is Spotify for authors. The rest of what Findaway Voices used to handle for distribution beyond Spotify is going over to Voices by InAudio. So this means they're going to handle all the other retailers. So you can hit Amazon, Audible, Apple, Overdrive, Barnes & Noble. There's so many more. Kobo. But they handle all the rest of those. And I think it comes out to, I think they have 38 different retailers options. So if we remove the Spotify option, that means there's 37. Now that move doesn't happen until August the 1st. One thing I'm going to highly recommend is because they are splitting into two different entities, most likely you're going to have to sign a new agreement on their terms of use. Before you do that, research it. Read those terms of use. Do not blindly agree to it until you understand wholeheartedly what those terms of use mean. I actually had someone reached out to me recently, and they pointed out a few concerning passages in Spotify's terms of use for Spotify for Authors. So proceed with caution. Now, the pros with going through these avenues is it's huge reach across Spotify's 500 million plus users. You also can set your own pricing, unlike ACX. The royalty varies by the retailer, and it's non-exclusive, by the way. The cons include exclusive distribution to Spotify means you'll need an audio for other outlets. The split adds workflow complexity, meaning you got 2 accounts, 2 separate uploads. And it's still very new. The royalty rates for Spotify's streaming model are not widely understood just yet. And the potential for lower per unit revenue if Spotify leans heavily on streaming versus purchasing, because those are 2 options, and it doesn't appear it's like an all or nothing type situation. It doesn't appear like you can deselect streaming or purchasing. So meaning that if someone has a Spotify membership, they can go ahead and listen to it through their streaming service, and you're paid a fraction of the amount that you would get through a full purchase. Now, this option is best for authors wanting visibility on Spotify, indie publishers testing streaming models, and those already using Findaway voices. Of course, it's going to be easy migration. Another platform for you to look into is Authors Republic. Now, they have broad distribution, including niche audiobook retailers. A lot of them are being fulfilled through Findaway. So you're going to need to pick through the items that are already covered if you happen to be going through Findaway voices, and you're going to have to deselect or request that to be removed from your distribution through Authors Republic. Now, I think they take 30% commission from your net sales, but I probably should have fact-checked that. But I believe it was a 70-30 split on that. And I did mention real briefly about Spoken Press for direct sales and digital narration. Again, great ideal for AI narration for personal voice and emotional cueing. They're experimental, they're indie friendly, and they're still in the early stages. And to my recollection, again, it's a 50-50 royalty split for Spoken Press. Now, how to make audiobook sales? Easier said than done, right? First of all, build awareness of the fact that you have it as an option. So anytime that you are recommending that people purchase your book, you can always say specifically, make sure that you pick up my book, available on major platforms in ebook, audiobook, and paperback. Something like that. Other ways that you can sell your audiobook would be through things like direct sales, where you can bundle the ebook as well as the audiobook, whisper sync style type options, if you will. You can promote it in your email list or through newsletter swaps. You can add it to your book funnel library for art copies. You can use social media audio snippets as teasers. You can consider discount promos on places like Chirp, which is being fulfilled through Findaway, of course. And you can also submit it to free audiobook promo websites like Audiobook Boom or free audiobook codes. There's a number of them as well. You can do a quick Google search. I'm sure you'll find something. Now, here are some quick tips for selling with a $0 budget. It pains me to say this because I'm not a big fan of it, a digital narration, but I do know that it is one of the most practical applications there is. So using AI narration tools to create your first audiobook version. Now, remember, you're not married to that. You don't have to stick with the digital narration. Maybe that's just a good placeholder until you get a good pro narrator. I recommend you go for pro, but I understand sometimes maybe, just maybe, that's not the option that's going to work out for you. There is always royalty share over through ACX. I'm not going to completely poop on them. It did bring me in a significant amount of revenue in my early days of self-publishing. You can also build a free book funnel landing page to test interest. You can ask for early feedback plus testimonials to build social proof. You can create your own audiobook sample to share in your newsletter or website. There are so many ways you can do to get your book out there. You're only limited by your imagination. Heck, you can always just put together an audiobook clip and post it over on YouTube. That's 100% free. Why not? Give it a shot. You can always share that across social media. You can embed it on your website. There are a number of ways to do this. No one specific way that's going to work universally for everyone. So just test those things out. As we start to wrap up today's podcast, I want to, of course, give a big shout out to Book Award Pro, my sponsors. You want more reviews, more exposure, and more credibility for your books? Book Award Pro makes it easy to find and submit to awards that match your genre and goals. I use them myself, and it's helped me build authority and sell more books. Start for free at my affiliate link, dalelinks.com/bookawardpro. You can go ahead and enroll all of your books in the free program. It doesn't cost you a dime. And every week you'll get an email for that specific book, letting you know about the specific awards and review opportunities that you have available to you. Here are my final thoughts when it comes to getting those audiobooks out there. If audiobooks have felt out of reach because of the cost, you've now got options, real doable options. Whether you're using cutting-edge AI narration or, my preference, professional voice actors, you can get your book into listeners' ears. Start small, all right? Test the market and then grow from there. There was a few tips that I kind of sprinkled throughout here. For instance, doing a 50-50 royalty share on your first audiobook. Get the earnings from that. Take it back, reinvest into that specific area of your business. Get more audiobooks done or buy out that contract from that narrator. There's so many ways we can go ahead and do this. But as we start to wrap up today's podcast episode, I want to let you know that we're going to cap things off in this 12-part series, The Ultimate Indie Author Sales Strategy. What I'd do if I had to start over today. Yeah, we're going to talk about that next week. It's going to probably be a longer than normal podcast episode like today was, but I think that you will be interested in hearing a little bit more. Till later, this has been Self-Publishing with Dale, and I'll catch you next week.